All right, so we'll kick things off here on our video about planting fall potatoes in the South. And I'm just going to show you guys just real quick how I'm getting it set up and ready so that we can run through here and get these buds in the ground pretty quick. So it's pretty clear what I did. I've got it all hilled up. But what I actually did, and I talk about, I really try to keep my garden no-till as much as possible. This is the most tilling that I've done in this garden in over a year. My whole philosophy, I've made videos about it in the past, is when you're breaking new ground, which is this over here, till it deep, lay on compost thick, and never till it again. Just get that first deep till to break up that subsoil, especially for me, because I've run over this stuff so much, my topsoil is gone. That is hard compacted. It is like rock. Anyway, this is kind of interesting. So what I did to make these hills is I just used my little middle buster plow. And this is funny because I grew up with a traditional one-sided plowshare. I think we had three shares on the bottom. So it flips everything to one side. Well, this one flips it to both sides, right? So it cuts a trench. It cuts a trench, and adjacent to the trench, of course, it makes a hill. And what I learned when I was planting my little cherry trees this spring was I can cut a trench, and then I can scoot over about 2 feet and put the tire in that trench and cut the next trench, and it gives me a really good spacing of just over 2 feet on center, which is a pretty good row spacing in general for a garden. 2 foot on center, Now, of course, I'm a little bit more than that. I couldn't get in right here beside the plants, beside the tomatoes. My tire was there, right? So I only get a half a hill there. I may not plant in that one, just leave that extra kind of buffer. It'll be about 4 feet off the tomatoes, which is totally fine because I can put a 4-foot strip of plastic in there as a ground cover. Which the tomatoes are gonna come out. Look at these things. I don't even know what that weed is called, but it's a nasty son of a gun. Thorny. Anyway, so the tomatoes are gonna come out here. Well, it's starting to cool off, so they'll actually start blooming and setting again. They'll come out eventually, and I'll put winter garden in there. So anyway, I come through and I made all my hills and rows. I mentioned in the preparation video when I was talking about breaking that new garden extension that I wasn't sure what I would do. Seeing this now, I am going to plant the potatoes on the hills, not in the trenches. And that's because mostly the trench has been is a little more compacted because the tire ran in the trench. The hills is really nice and loose. So I'm going to run across the top of every hill with a garden rake just to flatten it off a little bit. And then we'll run down the middle of it with a pointed hoe or the corner of a hoe and cut just a real shallow furrow. Set those potatoes in on top of that hill. And then, of course, we're going to hay them in. So for right now, starting them growing, just to get them going, like I said, they're just going to be covered with dirt. We're going to have to keep irrigation on it for, a week or two, whatever, while they germinate and break through that soil. And just as soon as they break through, we're going to start getting hay in around them. But anyway, what I wanted to mention, this is really neat. So this soil, look how rich and moist and black this is. This is blackish gray, but it's very, very dry. And then we get over here and it starts to turn to tan. And then, of course, we get to Holstein because this is where I just spread new compost. So that all's gotten churned in. Nothing has ever grown there. This was kind of a buffer zone, but I believe this is where I had spread compost to plant potatoes and then didn't use the whole area. So it's had weeds in it all summer, and I've just been pulling weeds out of it occasionally, but I haven't really had anything stay growing in it. And it's almost as if the compost has gone away. Yeah, it's just so light and so tan, but you can still see a little bit of dark in it, that it's got something. This was the old potato patch and was the zucchini patch up until this morning when I ripped the zucchini out. This was the sweet corn, and this was the edge of the green beans, and it was the edge of what was also last year's garden. Okay, so this has been under no-till, you know, all organic for what it's worth, but to me the biggest thing is no-till gardening for 2 years now. And we have been in, I would say, borderline drought. We have had no significant rain for probably 2 months, really. It's very, very, very dry here. Now this was under plastic, but it's wet, it's moist. I was driving through there with the tractor. I was sinking with the tractor, okay? That's like gooey, you know, that's really, really soft. I mean, that's just exceptional. That is everything you could hope for. That it's been under plastic for 2 months, no serious rain, and no real irrigation on it because I set my sprinklers up, you know, to focus on what needs to be watered. I'm not watering the plastic on purpose. And even if I was, not all the water gets through. So, I mean, it's just amazing that the soil's so rich, so nice, so moist with lack of rain. Now, the area that was corn was also under plastic, but it's much, much drier. And to me, I don't really know for sure what that implies. I'm not going to speculate. I'm wondering, though, about, you know, the potential nitrogen and just biologic life in general in this, because it's 2 years old versus this that was 1 year old and had corn in it, which would have stripped the nitrogen. Now my corn was there last year but had beans in it this spring, so I don't know, I'm just kind of kicking around here. But you know, all of this stuff in the beginning was all the same. It was all the same, you know, tan to light gray, you know, very clay, silty dirt. I don't even like to call it soil because it's not good soil. But it's really neat to look at it now and see this profile that, especially between this and this, which were both under plastic, were both, you know, originally set up in the same way, plowed deep, spread compost thick, and plant right in it right away. So to see this one appear so much drier and different than the one adjacent to it, I mean, you almost have to believe that it was something to do with what was planted in it. I don't think the compost, when I put this compost in here, it was thick. It was deep. So, you know, I don't think I can't say that that compost was really spread that much deeper than this. This was really, really deep. It's just missing something. It's missing some organic matter or something to make it hold that moisture, because this, you know, it's nice and dark. And when it gets wet, it's going to look black, but it's just so powdery, you know? It's just so powdery. That's why it looks so light, is because it's just drier. So anyway, something's making it not hold the moisture like that is. But back on the potatoes, I know I rambled enough about that, but it's just really neat, and it's something to really think about in your own garden when you really got to study your soil, understand your soil, and gardening will become so much easier when you understand your soil.